And there we go. I can hear my audio. We're going to say we're good. Thank you all for being here. Welcome everyone. Oops, over here now. Welcome everyone to today's show. I am going to close this door. Get a little bit quieter in here. Welcome to today's show. I love to know where everyone is watching from. We've got a good audience today. So if you haven't already chimed in the comments, let me know where you are watching from. And because that's the whole nature of streaming, is that you are here, I am here, we're both here live in the same virtual room together. And this way we can have a conversation. If you have a question, wait, let me click on that. If you have a question, put it in the comments, because you can ask something right now and I can try and answer it. I will be honest. I will do my best. I don't know everything. I am still learning, just like you. And if I don't know something, I'll tell you. I am in the midst of actually still setting up, because today is today's show. Let me hide that and get rid of my little ticker here. Today's show is all about battery power. So as such, I actually did not fire everything up before the show. You actually saw me firing up some of the things right as we're about to start here. And part of what I'm doing is I plan on doing everything via battery. So part of that is actually changing the Wi-Fi settings on some of these devices, which I don't know if I can do while I'm live broadcast settings. No, go back. As NDI is on. So one of the things that I really wanted to do was to have that done. Connection method? No. It should ask me how it wants to connect. And part of doing a show on battery, and I will just be upfront, I am not doing a show on battery today. I have a big studio light. I'm in front of a studio wall. I've got a backlight, you know, on my hair and everything. So I am not running on battery power today. If you want to see a show outside, you can go. I actually do have a show that I did outside, battery powered, you know, gear, and that is available in the previous lives, which you can find on the StreamTek site over here. So if you come up to the top, you click on live, that will take you to all of the previous live shows all the way down here. And you can, I don't know how far back it was, but you can find all of the previous things. So you know, feel free to scroll through here, and there may be something stream outside. There it is, stream outside. So I am outside there doing a show, you know, and the cameras are on battery power and whatnot. So that is a great show about doing a show outside. Today's show is not about doing a show outside. It's talking about battery powering your gear and what options are available. So if you have ever had to like do a live stream, you know, basically they call it in real life, IRL, is about as portable and as mobile as you can go. Usually they're just walking around with a cell phone or something like that. Now I can change that. Yes, I know, done. I'm changing the connection of the various devices to my ROG gaming router connect, because that is designed to handle more bandwidth than the Eero router that I have in the studio. So for the sake of being wireless and battery powered and portable, I'm trying to migrate all my gear over to this other router, which I didn't do because they weren't powered up before the show. So that is why there's going to be a little bit of setup with that. And again, I see the viewer count increasing. If you are just joining the show, I'd love to know where everybody is watching from. So please feel free to jump in the comments with where you're watching from. And let me just reiterate, if you do have a question, it doesn't have to be about being battery powered or battery powered solutions or things like that. It can be about anything, you know, and I'll do my best to answer it. So feel free to throw something in the comments. First, let's go through some hellos. Hi, Mike Sabatini says hello from LaSalle, Illinois. Good to see you there. GB Media is in New York, and Kirk Riley is in Dallas, Texas. Welcome to Kirk. Kirk's actually going to be working with me later this month, so this will be really cool. It'll be a lot of fun. And Eric Jan is in Haarlem, the Netherlands. Again, thank you for being there again. Matt Ruff is saying hello from Music City, USA. It's Nashville, Tennessee, for those who aren't in the USA. Let's Go Webcasting is in Charlotte, North Carolina. And Bowles Promo TV is watching 2 a.m.s in Queensland, Australia. So that's dedication. Thank you very much. Maybe you're still up. And just in case anybody didn't know, that's Wayne. So thank you all for being there with regards to this live show. Feel free to throw comments in, questions, anything that you want. I did have, one of them came in already. Hey, Anthony, good to see you. I was thinking of using multiple Apple TVs for a full wireless sports stream with my ATEM Extreme. I already tested this system using phones. Now I'm going to test the Mevo. I'm just wondering, is the Apple TV, are you using the Apple TVs for output or for input? Because one of the cool things that I found is you can duplicate an iPhone to an Apple TV, and that kind of gives you wireless cameras. And again, these are battery operated cameras. It gives you wireless, operated cameras, or your iPhone. There you go, Apple iPhone. There's my iPhone. And it gives you a battery operated camera that's going to last over an hour at least. And they've got the power port in the bottom. You plug in an external battery, sky is the limit, because technically it's going to run off the external power first. So that battery can run down, and then you unplug it and plug a new one in. Because the phone thinks it's just charging. It's going to charge the internal battery and keep the internal battery full. And it's just going to keep drawing from the wall. And when that external battery is running low, it's on the last little LED, yank it out, phone's still running, put a new one in. You can run all day like that. Mevo cams in NDI mode. The Sienna NDI app for Apple TVs makes this possible. There we go. Mevo cams in NDI mode, and the Sienna NDI app for Apple TVs makes this possible. So what he's talking about is using an NDI app. I actually have the older NDI app from StreamTek on my iPhone, and there are newer apps as well that will do NDI HX3 and HX2. I think mine's doing HX1. So we'll see if it even shows up. But the cool thing with Apple TVs and this type of solution is whatever app that you purchase to run on the Apple TV, you only have to purchase it once and then use it on as many devices as you want. The same with the Sienna NDI app on the phones. And it just works on all the devices. You're purchasing the app. And as far as I know, most of these apps are not, oh, you have to buy it for this device. Oh, and you have to buy it for that device. Oh, and you have to buy it for that device. It's not the same as when you activate NDI on, say, an OBSBot. When you activate NDI on this OBSBot, it's $99 for this OBSBot. And then if you want a second one, you have to activate it for that one. And a third one, it's completely different when you use apps. You purchase the app. The app will work on multiple devices. Now, there may be caveats to that. Maybe some of them have gotten permission to charge per device. I have not seen that though. So that is a really, really cool solution to using NDI on a non-NDI switcher. And in terms of talking battery power, remember that the switchers, the ATEM mini switchers, are 12 volt. 12 volt switchers. Now, typically we just get an AC adapter and plug that into the wall and then put it into the back and screw it in, and we're running. Like, I'm actually using the ATEM to switch my sub cameras that are usually over here on the right. That's what the ATEM is switching. But if you had a camera battery, camera batteries are going to be 12, 13, 14 volts. It's within the range of, saying 12 volts. They're going to run all your 12 volt gear. Now, you can't necessarily plug this into, you know, this is what they call a V-Lock battery, and it came out with Sony cameras, but now it's available, and now the patent's out, so you're able to put these on anything. The V-Lock batteries, because it's a V, the V-Lock batteries for professional gear are going to give, you know, 12, 13 volts. And then they have a plate. You lock that into the plate, and there's this, what some call a P-tap or a D-tap. Do I have it? Yeah, there's one here. Actually, let me go to this camera so I can put this in here. You move the cable out of the way. That right there, those two pins on these plates are providing 12 volt output from the battery directly. It's not regulated, it's just coming out of the battery. So when the battery dies, that dies too. This one has two outputs. There's one in this plate, there's one in that plate. And this is a plate I made eons ago. And you can now get these as a single plate. But IDX was one of the first companies to come out with lithium-ion batteries. And these amazingly, you're going to be shocked when you see this. These amazingly have a date of when I purchased them, 9 of 05. So this battery is nearly 20 years old. That just, anyway. So in 05, I wanted to pull power from the battery that wasn't going through the camera, and there wasn't a way to do that. And IDX made a replacement plate to go on cameras, and they had a dual NP box, because NP batteries were the standard back then, that had a plate that would go onto the new camera. So you could use old batteries on the new cameras, and you could use the new batteries on old cameras. So they had both pieces. So I actually asked to purchase both of these plates as parts, and I put this together, and this became what I called a V to V plate, where I could pull the battery power off directly. Now these things are readily available. You can get a V-Lock plate that will give you even power conversion, 7 volts, 5 volts, USB power, and everything. This is what I had to invent before that was available. This is a 20-year-old invention right here. And what this is going to do is this gives you the ability to pull that 12 volts off, and then you can run it into whatever you want, multiple things. These batteries will deliver like 50 watts of power. So this thing is like a multi-tap. You know, just take your Fifth Element multi-tap, and this will give you D-tap. See, it looks like the letter D. I don't know why some call it a P-tap, but it's a D-tap. And this will give me 4 outputs from one. And then I have this other wonky cable that takes the little D-tap and gives me what are called Anderson, let's move it up here, Anderson power poles, which is a standard in other types of electronic gear. These aren't going to pull out very much because your pulling is sideways to the thing. The power poles do pull out, but they will run radios and things like that. And I've made up a little adapter like this so that I can take my 12 volt to what they used to call a cigarette lighter adapter for cars. Now it's an accessory adapter. And then I can get PD power, multiple USB powers right here. There's a quick charge on the bottom. And I know this is a little wonky. This is just because I have this for doing one thing, and I made this for ham radio, and I have the D-tap for doing gear on an on-shoulder camera that I have. So I just putting all the pieces together to show how you can just adapt this to wherever you want. Once you get 12 volts, you can send that whatever you want, and you can convert it to whatever you want to. Or you can more simply, if you have access to a car or you're shooting in a car, you just take your accessory adapter and you can put a D-tap on the end, or I have an Anderson power pole. So because it's all modular, I can now take this and I can run it, plug it in here, and I can run it further back. Or I could just plug this right into the adapter in the car and plug multiple USB powered cameras like the Mevo Start, like the OBSBot, like a lot of things these days. They will run off of USB power. And that in and of itself is going to be a great boon to being battery powered. If you have a piece of gear like a Mevo Start that runs off of USB-C right there, it has a built-in battery. It's going to last X long, but when I did a concert, what I did was each camera had a dedicated battery. So this battery pack has 2 of the cells that are in here. So now it's 3 times as long. I made a little hangy thing to go on the tripod. So you take the power output from here, you run it into here. I ran these things for 7 hours. The concert was only going to be 4 hours. I ran these things for 7 hours as a test, and I still hadn't even started using the battery and the camera down. I was using just this. So, and that was all NDI, all wireless, and you can see video of that on the Stream for Us YouTube page. So that is how you can take 12 volt and use wired gear. An ATEM mini switcher is going to be 12 volts input. And now you're running it on a battery. I could literally run my ATEM off of this with no problem. And this is not a paid endorsement of IDX. As you saw, I purchased this battery 20 years ago. So yeah. I'm going to be mentioning a lot of products here. Nobody is paying to be in today's show. Nobody, I don't have a relationship with anyone, except I do have a relationship with Bird Dog, and I will be doing a Bird Dog show later today. So just being upfront about that. Let's continue down the list. Let's Go Webcasting asks, what's the best way to extend the battery life on an OBSBot Tail Air? As I just said, if you've got a Tail Air and you've got this thing on a tripod, there's a USB port in the back. And if you plug in USB power, it's going to start charging the battery. Now, it's blinking purple. It's actually blue, but I've got a blue screen, so it's keying out the blue and replacing it with the background. So that's why it looks a little weird. But it's charging the battery because that's what it's designed to do. If it gets power from the outside, it uses that first. Always. It charges the battery. Now, if you're in a really hot situation, you're going to run into an issue where the charging circuitry creates heat. And it creates heat in the battery. And it's hot. So you may run into thermal issues. I don't know if that's actually going to happen. I don't know what the thermal profile is of the OBSBot Tail Air. And this will run for however long you've got an external battery. And as I mentioned, like with the iPhones, now this external battery is dead. I yank it out, still running. And I plug in another one. Still running. So however long you want to run them, you get a big external battery, you could run for 5, 6, 7 hours, and then after 5 hours, you just send somebody out with a bunch of replacement batteries, swap, 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 and you just keep running. So if you've got like an all-day concert thing or an all-day sports event and you need these little things to just keep running, put them on external batteries. But that also goes back to what I say in many of my how-to videos and best tips is to test, test, test. Like I said, when I had a concert coming up, I tested this outdoors in the heat in Texas, 4 stands, running NDI, streaming into my thing. I was running records on the computer, and I streamed all 4 cameras over NDI for 7 hours and recorded 7 hours of footage from 4 cameras because I wanted to make sure it would last for 4. So that would be the best way I would extend the life on the cameras. And I've got multiple, extender cables here, one for each of the Mevo Starts. And that way I had this hanging on the tripod. This is at the top of actually it was a mic stand. This is on the bottom, this was on the top. And I had these as like 4 tiny little cameras on stage that people just ignored because they're so small. I had one on the drummer, one on this guitarist, one on that guitarist. I had one on the stand facing the stage that was just wide, locked off, and then I had an operated camera following the singer or singers manually operated that was a Sony, camcorder. And I had all those cameras coming to me in the truck, and that's what I switched between for the show. Worked a treat. Any thoughts on the PTZ Optics Studio Pro camera? I have not taken a look at that, so I'm just being honest. I have not been doing other things, so I have not seen the Studio Pro camera. Steve is watching from Harrisonburg, Virginia today. Thank you very much. We have Mr. Robert watching from Seal Beach, California. Thank you very much. Wolfgang is watching from Germany. And again, if you haven't already chimed in, let me know where you're watching from. This is a worldwide show. This is the cool thing about live streaming, is that we get to do this and the audience can be anywhere in the world at any time. Andreas is saying hello from Greece. Thank you for being there. GB Media says, output. I shoot with the NDI app. Yes. Carlos Phoenix. Thank you very much, Carlos. You got to check him out. He also sells a lot of live streaming gear, so you can check Carlos out. He's watching on Facebook. Everybody saying hello. Thank you very much for being here. The new small rig 99 Pro have 2 PD USB-C, which is a great way to power stuff. Yes, there is. That I believe is probably the small rig is probably dealing with the bigger VLOC batteries, but there's all kinds of batteries. There's 2 professional standards: the VLOC and what they call the Gold Mount, which was created by Anton Bauer, but now a lot of different companies use it. And I have these, but I have a camera that has a Gold Mount, so I have a V to Gold Mount adapter to take this battery and run it on that mount. I could technically just put my camera plate on that camera, but it was easier to keep this for when I need to do this. Matt Ruff says, my office, also my studio, all runs on a UPS. For my latest stream, I powered off of the Mega DJI Power Weather power station. This is also a good point too. We talk about these really cool power stations. They're $600 and stuff. And they do a lot of really cool things. They give you a lot of outputs. They're lithium ion batteries and stuff like that. But if you don't have $600 or more to blow on a really cool power station, a UPS does the same thing. It's a battery with a converter to get it to AC. That's all a UPS. There's a charger in there too, but we're going to ignore that. We're just talking about running off of batteries. And a UPS is a battery and an AC inverter in the same box. And the nice thing, whenever I do a live show on location somewhere, where is that stack? I don't know where that stack is. I actually have this tiny little thing from Extreme Products that is a tiny little UPS with lithium ion batteries. It only gives me 15 minutes, but if the power is going to be out for more than 15 minutes, we're just going to stop the show. But it gives me enough to go through a brownout or something like that. And it's like this big. It's super cool. And those things, all these things are going to, the power stations are going to give you more, they're newer technology. So they give you PD power ports, they give you 12 volt output ports, they give you multiple USB-C ports or USB-A, and they give you AC ports, and they can be solar charging at the same time. So there's a lot of capability. A UPS generally is a bit dumber, simpler, and as such, considerably cheaper. It used to be you could get I think I've got a 600 kVA for $99. You can get desktop models for under $100. They're not going to run all day. It's vastly different. And I will say most UPSs, almost all UPSs, are still running on lead acid batteries, which is also another reason why they're considerably cheaper. You can get a cell, a 12 volt, 7 amp hour cell for like $23 that's lead acid. You want the same size, but a drop-in replacement that's lithium ion, that's going to be $100. Same physical, same capacity, same size, same connections, same battery, but different technologies in the battery, almost 4 times the cost. And when UPSs make them, they're sourcing these batteries at wholesale cost, which is pennies. So, but this is a great. Thank you very much for this, Matt. This is a great tip. UPSs is a great way to run a bunch of stuff, and power stations are like modern versions of UPSs that you can run lots of stuff off of a battery. Let's go up and have us all. Yep, the little discussion going on. Did the OBSBot have a special 360 mount rotated pack? Yes, they did. I have not seen it. I have seen people post in the OBSBot group on Facebook that they have one, or one or two people have mentioned it. And for people who haven't seen it, do I have OBSBot? I do have OBSBot up here, I think. I do have OBSBot. Let's do side by side. PCs, side by side. There is, go away. Product, let's go to the Tail Air. And see if they've got a picture of it here. They've got their little remote, which is battery operated. Yes, they do. This is. I remember seeing it on this page, and I think it was with the skateboarder, that you could track things all the way around because of that base. Now, maybe they pulled it off because it's not really a product that's selling, and if it's not selling a lot, then it's not cost effective to keep it going. There it is, right there. There's the base, and it uses these little pogo pins on the bottom here, so you don't even have to work to attach these things. You just drop this in, and that is an accessory for this. Uses those pins to communicate with the camera with regards to tracking, because the camera can only track so far, and then it's going to hit the end. It stops. So it reaches a point where it doesn't go any further. Well, the 360 base is going to allow it to keep going all the way around. So they have to communicate so that this can talk to that thing, and also it's providing additional power. So that is the base that they're mentioning about. They did, I don't know if it's available in places, but that is something that was available. The Tail Air is one of the two cameras that we can talk about today. The Tiny 2s, these are USB cameras. They can plug into whatever you're using. And that's actually another thing to consider as well. Move my cursor around to get rid of this. The little cameras, like if you are doing, again, battery operated, this is the Ultra in a PK1 case. PK1 provided this case so that I could use it on the desk. This has USB ports on top, right here. And if you have USB ports on top, you can take one of those tiny little webcam cameras and mount it to that port. Now it's being powered by the tablet. So that USB camera, which is not necessarily battery operated, is now battery operated, and you can have a little camera looking at you. If you're doing a show like me right now, that could literally be the Tiny 2 or the Tiny 2 Lite or the Tiny SE or the Meet SE. It could be any of these webcams because they're all powered via USB, and I could just have that on a tripod. At one point when I did a review of it, I literally just got a little right angle adapter. Yeah, it's gonna make it hard to get. I literally got a little right angle adapter, and I plugged it into the top of here, and then that way I could plug the camera into this, and there was my camera. That was literally all I needed, because I was able to be like, okay, I'm going along. This battery is going to last for hours, and the battery demand of the USB camera is negligible. I would hazard to say any of those tiny little webcams, even like a Logitech or something like that, adding that to be powered by your device you're not going to tell the difference between with camera and without in terms of running on a battery. Matt says, I use my Tail 2 upside down. Has anyone used the Tail 2 upside down? I have not, but I believe there's a flip command in the software in the OBSBot software. So if that's what you're using for your Tail Air, it's going to be available for the Tail 2 because the software is essentially the same. And, you know, like we're talking about the ability to stream from an all-in-one tablet is nice because these have built-in batteries. Like I was talking about external batteries for your ATEM Mini and other desktop switchers. These have built-in batteries. Now, there's also the main competitor to YOLOBox, which is the Director series from Magewell, also the Talent made by Magewell. Now, this is currently plugged in because I wanted to show the batteries are external. Now, yes, it's 12 volt external. You could run it off a battery pack. And the same is said for this too. People are saying, how can I run my YOLOBox for longer? Same with the cameras. You plug in an external big battery pack and it's going to charge the internal battery. It's going to suck the external battery dry first. And then the internal battery basically becomes your UPS. So this is going to be 100% while the outside one goes dry, and you yank it out, put another one in, and you know, charge that one up or whatever. You just bring a bunch. Solar power, I don't know. And that way you can keep running. This will just keep running because this is being maintained by the external batteries. The Director series has external batteries, and these use the NPF mount. These batteries came out in 1995. That's when this was invented by Sony. Came out with the Sony VX1000. And I remember that crystal clear because I just came back from a big 3-month shoot and we were using big broadcast cameras with old NP batteries and it was just a beast. And that September that we came back, Sony introduced the VX1000 with little batteries like this that could run for 6 hours and record digitally. So it's better quality, smaller cameras, longer lasting. It was everything we needed. It just came out 3 months too late. Anyway, so these just slip in here, and the way, am I doing it right? Oh, no, I'm not doing it right. The other way. There you go. 1 and 2. Now this works the same way. So if I've got this up and running, it's going to prioritize the external power. And then when I unplug the external power, then all of a sudden the battery lights are going to light up and tell me how much power is in each battery. This is on the Director 1, the Director Mini, and the Talent only have a single LED to tell you which battery, which battery is being used. So this thing will run for like all day at this point because these are some big batteries. These are the 970s. And what that means is I can have this sitting here on the table and, I'm just good to go. It just runs and runs and runs and runs. Plus, I can swap out one battery from the other. And as we all know with our cell phones, cell batteries tend to wear out the more you use them. So if you are somebody that's always doing stuff outside and you're always charging up your whichever switcher you have and you're cycling these batteries a lot, they are going to wear out. So one of the advantages with this setup is when these batteries no longer hold as long a charge as I need, I just buy new ones and I use the new batteries. I don't have to disassemble anything. It doesn't have to go in full repair. It's internal. With our cell phones, we all know after a year or two of daily cycling that battery life doesn't get us through the day anymore. So, and that's an extreme case. We're not using these tablets and running them dry off of a battery every single day. But over the course of 2 and 3 years, now all of a sudden we're adding cycles, and the cycles add up. So that is something to consider when you're looking at a battery operated item. You can kind of make this battery last a little longer, the YOLO box battery, by using external power, so you're not draining the internal battery down, doing those cycles, but it's still being used. So there's that. Let's just see. Matt Ruff says, I ran out of USB-A ports on my Ultra, so I'm using a USB hub, a go-in from Anker, with no issues. Yes, that's also another advantage in that there are two USB ports on the bottom here, one of which, wait, there you go, one of which says battery, and that is just for your power input. The other one says Type-C, and that is where he's plugging in the hub, so you can plug in a webcam down there, or a keyboard dongle or something like that. He also mentions using every port on my YOLO Box Ultra, so you need to keep 45 watt to keep up with the pull. I keep my battery charged on the Ultra below 80% to help prolong its life. That's another thing that they started with cell phones too. If you don't push it all the way to 100, it tends to lengthen the life of the battery if you just charge it in this middle ground, and you don't drain it till you suck it dry. We have some power tools that use 20-volt batteries, and I can tell you, if you constantly suck them till the device stops, and then if my son is doing it, he just keeps turning it on, little more, little more, little more. You wear those batteries out pretty quick when you just pound them to death. Salute. Hey Don, good to see you. Salute panel and chat. San Diego question: who makes those little yellow handle cages you're displaying? These little yellow cages are made by, I show it right there, PK1. You can go pk1.tv, I believe it is. And this is a custom color scheme that they made for me for the show. I told them I would hold it up on the show and go, look. Okay, so now we're even. They provided it for me so that I would go, look. And that's the extent of the deal. I'm not getting paid. And I'm just sending you to the website, so I'm not getting a little piece of the action either. But this one for the Director 1, and they've got them for the Mini and the YOLO Box Pro, the Ultra, and I'm told they're working on one for the, actually in a previous show they said they're working on one for the Extreme. This one's got, you know, cold shoes on top, over here, so if you want to add a wireless mics, receivers, wireless video receivers, you know, whatever you want, all those things are there. And I worked with them. We consulted on this one, making it a little taller so that you could fit the smaller battery in here. Where did I do that? Give me a second, let me go get that battery. So for those who don't know and have been living under a rock since 1995, so for the past 30 years, these batteries, these NPF batteries, come in 3 sizes. And then there's a lot of new variations too. These batteries come in 3 sizes. There is the 970 or whatever. There's the 770. And then there's a 570. Do I have the 5s here? I should. Yes, they're plugged. They're actually my battery backup in the one that's running the show, but I'm going to take one out. I'm going to try to take one out if I can reach the button. Yes. And this is the 570. So the 570 quite obviously has 2 battery cells in it, 2 round cells. The next step up has 4 round cells. This is the 770. And then the 9 has 6. Now this one's a little taller because I got this one because I was doing something with my Sony camcorders, but I needed a Tally. The Tally runs off a USB. So this battery made by whoever that is, here, I'll just hold it up. So whoever that is, and this is not a sponsor, I paid for these batteries, it has a USB out so that I can power the little wireless LED tally system on top of the camera from the battery. So one battery providing power to both things. There are other types of batteries that'll give you 12 volt out, but I didn't want to have to convert 12 volt to USB, so I found this one. Interestingly enough, because there's this USB circuit board on top, I can actually charge it via USB too, which is pretty cool. So it's a honking big cell phone backup. But you can use any of these batteries on the back of anything that uses NPF batteries. And I worked with the PK1 guys to make it so, and I just swapped out both batteries, and this thing is still running because I swapped them out one at a time and it just goes to wherever there's power. So I did it so that I worked with them to give some height so I could run 2 of these 750 batteries and it would still sit comfortably on the table with the additional clearance, because these become your battery backup. So if I'm running a show outdoors, I've got these batteries and I'm good to go. Or even if I'm indoors and I'm running on AC, I leave a battery in the unit so that if there's a power dip or something like that, the show doesn't drop. My recording can still be stopped and closed properly. So I'm actually using the other one of this as a UPS on my Director Mini that I'm running today's show on. And both of these batteries stay in the back of the Director Mini, and they're there in case the AC power coming in just has a slight fluctuation. There's always power to the unit. It always has power available to the board from whatever source it wants to pull it from. And that way I'm assured that the show will go on. I'm going to now put this battery back in. There we go. And I did that while the show was still going on. Cool. Let me get out of the graphics screen. So that is a little information on the info-lithium batteries that are now you can keep in the back of the PK1 stand that I have on here. The YOLO box stand doesn't need that, so they're able to make this a little thinner, so to speak. It's got this metal bracket here. It's got, shoe, but they also make these like little fold out feet. So now it's tabletop. And then if I don't need tabletop, I just need a cage that I'm going to mount on a camera, but I want to mount other things to it. I got that. So this is like the best of both worlds. So that's that. And it's got a metal bracket on the bottom and the top. And they actually do have like other management. So if you've got USB cables, they've got little management things that you could put in here, so the cable will go through that. And in case somebody yanks on it, it's not being yanked directly on the device itself. Don't disconnect. Cancel. Matt Ruff asks, 80 to 40% is the optimum per battery for the VP of batteries at Apple. Well, I'm never going to do that for my cell phone. I let it charge up to 100% every night, and I drain it every day. So that may be the best, but I think most people aren't going to sit there and say, oh my goodness, the battery is at 40%. These also have a little LED in them, which is why I like it. Oh no, I've gone to 50%. Let me stop using it. No, I'm just going to use it. And then I'll buy another one. Eric Jan van Boegard says, I like the Swit NPF batteries. Yes, Swit has been making some really nice, and especially with their V-Lock batteries, very innovative solutions. I think Swit was one of the first ones that came out with the micro battery, in that it's sort of like there's this mount, and they said, well, you know what? We actually don't need to make the battery that tall because the cells have gotten more powerful, so we can deliver the same amount of power in a smaller battery. So they come out with this like little NP battery that's got this. I only need to mount here, and I need and this distance from the mount to the shoe, or to the where the connectors are. That's a standard. We can't change that. Can't tell every camera manufacturer to change, but we don't need to do the top. We don't need that. So they just made a shorter battery. It also has to do with airline FAA regulations with regards to how much lithium you can bring on board. So you can only have so big of a battery, and you can only have so many batteries to carry on to an airplane. And it varies a little bit airline to airline, and it varies a little bit whether it's international or but there's a standard. I think it's not more than 100 grams of lithium or something like that, or it used to be 100 watt hours or something. I don't know what it is. And it has to do whether it's in one battery at a time, because Tag was the first company to do it, and then several other companies did it. There was an issue whereby, well, cameras, big on-shoulder cameras, needed a lot of power. You know, those big full sensor cameras, you know, with the big, you know, lenses and stuff like that, they need a lot of power. So you get this big 12-volt battery, well, it's going to suck this one dry pretty fast. So they made a bigger battery, but you couldn't transport that one. It had to go by ground. You couldn't put it on a plane with your camera. So what they did was they instead made two batteries that piggybacked, and the second battery put power into the first battery. So you're essentially using a big battery, but when it comes time to pack and fly with it, it's two batteries. That was pretty innovative, I thought. A good solution. Carlos, NYC here, full support. Yes. Don Cato says, PK1, nice job. The handles are game changers. Yes, I do like the handles. It makes it easy to pick up and carry. Also, I mean, technically, none of these devices are designed to be rugged devices. So having something that provides a little bit of extra little bump protection on the outside and everything. There's not really antenna protection on the one with these big antennas that stick out, just like I don't think there's going to be antenna protection for the Extreme with the little antennas that stick out on the Extreme. But be that as it may, you can take the antennas off of all those, you know, both of those units and just store those separately. Close that off. Now, there's also a selection of other cameras out there, like Restream, also not sponsored by Restream, but Restream also makes a battery-operated long zoom. I think this one's got a 20x. One of their versions has a 20x optical zoom camera. And I saw this at NAB, and we zoomed from their booth, kind of like way off in the corner somewhere, all the way across the NAB floor to this little, you know, like booth over top of the expo. And I was like, damn. In a little battery operated unit. So that is something. Now there's no, look at it. That's an SD card slot and a USB-C and a microphone input. They have their own app for multi-camera switching, but I do not believe the Restreams do NDI, and I do not believe they, there's no HDMI out on the back of these as well. That is a micro SD slot. What you can do, though, is you can RTSP from these, and you can send the stream across the network to these all-in-one devices, and even some switchers that now will accept an RTSP stream input. So there's that going for you with those. Another option, like I was saying, let me go over to the side-by-side with the PC. I don't have it out right now, but the new Tail 2 camera is battery powered. It's a big camera and it's battery powered. So if you were scrolling down, just whatever. So this one has an optical zoom in it. I believe it's a 5x optical zoom, and it has, I'm trying to find a picture of the camera. There we go. It has this 5x optical zoom, and it can rotate. So if you wanted to do vertical, it's one of the few cameras that will do vertical. You can tell it do vertical or tell it do horizontal, or it will also auto level itself and stabilize. So if you were doing something in a car and things are bouncing around, or the car's going uphill and downhill, this thing will automatically stabilize the shot. It's like a little gimbal in there. And I demoed that with the Tail show, and you can find that now on the videos side. The OBSBot Tail 2, I compared it against the Tail Air, and it trounces the Tail Air. A real optical zoom, better optics. It's a bigger camera, okay? You know, and you're talking $499, $1,200. Yes, it's more than twice the cost, and it's worth it. I feel it's worth it because the image quality is better. It actually pulls back further, gives you a wider shot than wider shot than the. I also tested against a bird dog camera. It's wider than the bird dog camera. The bird dog camera the one that I have has a real 12x optical zoom, and that is still going to deliver a better image than a 5x zoom with a digital crop on the sensor. It's close, for certain things it might be okay. If you're doing, kids soccer or something like that, it might be fine. But if you're doing something that really you need that true 12x or 20x optical zoom, you're going to want a box camera like this, a bird dog that has a real optical zoom lens in it that's going to give you that real reach because it's going to be crystal clear all the way through the zoom range. Now, I say bird dog, and the interesting thing is they actually have an X4 Ultra. Again, disclosure, I do a show with bird dog that's later today. The X4 Ultra has a battery. This is a full-on broadcast PTZ camera that has wireless, comes with NDI. There's no additional licenses to buy for NDI for any bird dog product. Wireless and Wi-Fi 6 and a battery. I don't have one of these. I haven't been able to test it. I don't know how long the battery lasts. They say up to 6 hours of continuous operation per the website. So up to 6 hours for a battery. You got the Wi-Fi. So then you're doing wireless. This is not a wireless show, but technically if you have to run without power, the underlying thought is that you're in a situation where you can't run any wires. So you've got the Wi-Fi 6 and a battery. Now, Wi-Fi 6 is important also because there's a lot of devices that use the Wi-Fi frequencies, and often when there's a big crowd, the Wi-Fi frequencies will get kind of full. If the facility is only doing Wi-Fi 5 gigahertz and 2.4 gigahertz, and you have a router that's doing the higher frequency, the Wi-Fi 6 other frequencies, then you're the only people there. So there's an advantage with that. The X4 battery can be quickly recharged via USB. And that goes to what I've been saying before. If you have a nice big USB-C battery that can provide the power requirements, this might be greater than just 2.4 amps, might be 3 amps, might be a 45 watt power supply or higher. If you have a battery that will supply that, then you could be powering the camera from the external battery, and when you need to swap batteries, same thing, the internal battery will keep the camera going. And lastly, talking about the little Mevo Start, the Mevo Start has been a fantastic little camera. NDI is included. It runs for hours on the internal battery. It's super small. It's just amazingly small. I love these little cameras, and people who use them love them. They break the mounts off when they do baseball, but there's a couple things that people really want in these cameras. One of them, they want the ability to, this is just a fixed lens. It's one focal length, it's wide. Now you can kind of crop in the software, and I have done that when I did that concert. I use the software, like when I cut to the shot, I would use the software to do a slow zoom in on something, and I can move the shot around and things like that. That's cool, that's great. But it would have been nice to see, because it's been, 5-7 years since this has been out, for them to come out with a version 2 with a little threaded adapter on the front. Just give us the same camera with an Ethernet port for power over Ethernet and a threaded adapter and a shoe on top so we can attach a microphone. I get that it's, sleek and everything, but a cold shoe on top so I can put like a little, oops, that was me jiggling the cable. Sorry. Those would be the three things that I would have changed about this. And they've come out with the Mevo Core, great, micro four thirds, fantastic advancement, whole other price range, like the difference between the Tail Air and the Tail 2. But they haven't updated this thing in years. And I just, adding a little bit of zoom to this, I think would have made a huge difference to a lot of people. And I think BirdDog saw that opportunity, so they came out with this little Mach-E Live. It is this little camera, little box camera. I don't have one. They just announced it at NAB. I don't have anything to show. I'm going to hold this one up. This is the Restream. It's not the Mach-E. But it's a little camera with a 3x optical zoom. So it's something, you know. It's like sometimes when you put a camera down, it's not exactly where you want it to be. You know, it's like I have a stage, I can only put my cameras here. I wish they were just a little bit closer to get the 2-shot I want, to get the single shot I want. With a 3x optical zoom, and there's a digital zoom in there as well, with the 3x optical zoom, you're able to move in a little bit, you're able to move out a little bit. That gives you the flexibility not only to get the shot you want, but also to change the shot. You know, so if you've got, you know, if you're using one of these as a lock off in the back of the hall just for your wide shot, you can have a wide of the whole stage. Then you can have a wide just of the where the panel is talking, then go back to a wide of the whole stage when they're involving the audience. So now it's like you got an operator on that camera, but it's just a PTZ command to this locked off little box camera in the back of the hall. And the benefit is it's an optical zoom. It's not a digital crop on the sensor. But like I said, they offer that too to give you more of a little bit of a zoom range. They offer the ability to crop in on the sensor with a digital zoom. But with the 3x optical, I think they're starting to provide what people have been asking for, in which Restream, with their big zooms, have been providing as well. But again, full NDI, HDMI out, USB power, and I think you can RTSP directly from the camera itself. So there's a lot of capability in this, plus it's part of the whole BirdDog ecosystem too. So as a camera like that, you're going to get that level of quality out of it as well. Got a couple comments coming in. Ducolic says a Tail 2 has impressed me. It impressed me too. Like I said, I did a Tail 2 Tail Air comparison, and both battery operated, both OBSBot cameras, and the Tail 2 just looked better. Now you would expect it to look better considering the price difference. And I'm not saying that the Tail Air is a bad camera. It is a very good, very tiny little camera. It does fantastic for what it does. But same thing, people said, I wish I had a little bit of an optical zoom in here, and that's what OBSBot delivered. 5x. It's not a lot, but for a lot of things, it's enough. And then coupled with a little bit of digital zoom, you're getting wide to, it stops at about 12x. So, you know, but again, after that 5, and then, you know, 10, 11, 12, you know, it's starting to get a little crinkly in the details when you get to that point. And there's only so much AI can do. So that 5x, though, is more than 3x. It's less than 20. There's a lot of choices out there if you're talking about, I need a battery-operated camera for this outdoor event. Do you need the pan and tilt? There's pan and tilt versions. Do you need a lock-off shot of the stage? There's locked-off cameras. Do you need a tiny little point-and-shoot cameras on the stage to provide a couple little angles? You got little cameras like this and the Mach-E that can do that as well. There's a lot of options out there for tiny little battery operated cameras. Hey, maybe you're doing a parade and the whole thing has to move down the parade route with you. You could be carrying one of these things with internal cellular, or one of these with internal cellular, you know, any of these, doing the switch, and you've got people walking around with like little, you know, cameras just I'm walking around with the camera and stuff like that. The Tail 2 is a little heavy. I wouldn't try to walk around with the Tail 2. And the BirdDog X4, I wouldn't try to walk around with the X4. Yes, it has a built-in battery, but I would not necessarily say that's going to be something for a portable or a mobile type of setup. Matt Ruff says, I've been extremely impressed with the Tail 2. Don't need bigger PTZ. It's just for my studio. I replaced one ZV E1 or E10 with the Tail 2 and will be getting another one as soon as they come back in stock. And hopefully before the tariffs just cause everybody to have, everybody's going to, all of us are going to have to pay more. You know, China doesn't pay the tariffs, we do. And I know some resellers tried to stock up early, but I think that stock is gone at this point, and you know, who knows what the prices are going to be. I keep seeing on DP Review, Sigma just announced that lens prices are going to go up. Canon announced that camera prices are going to go up. Tamron announced that they're moving production to Vietnam to try and get around the tariffs. It's just a lot of angst all over the place. Between Maki, Nearstream, and PTZ optics, do you have a preference? PTZ optics. Oh, okay. I guess you're talking about just the box cameras. I don't. Oh, great. We got the 12 o'clock noon siren test today. So if you hear a siren, they're testing the siren in the local city for tornadoes in Texas. Do I have it? I have not seen. Oh, I did do a show on the Maki Ultra. It's a nice camera. I mean, a box lens has a place, but that place is very limited. Like, that place for me would be in a prompter, because it's going to sit there. It's going to look in one direction. It may need to zoom a little bit. That's basically it. But I've got a camera for that. I use the ZV-1 for that so that I can hold things up like my battery and it'll focus right on it. Boom. And it'll focus right back on me. That was one of the product showcase for creators that Sony came out with. And it has worked a treat for me. I do have a little bit of optical zoom and full manual controls on the camera. It's not NDI. I have it physically wired into the system. So that's what I've done. Between the Maki, the Nearstream, and PTZ optics, I would definitely say the Maki and or PTZ optics, because you've got the NDI capability. Again, I do not think that the Nearstream are thinking in the NDI space. I may be wrong about that. I can come over here and check. And these days, having things that can be networked really does help. In terms of integrating into larger multi-camera solutions. So let us take a look at this PC side by side. So Nearstream streaming cameras. $4K optical zoom streaming camera, $699. All right, let's click on that. Oh no, I didn't want to buy it. I wanted more information on it. Hardware. There's a 2K and there's a 4K. That takes you right to the store. $1080p streaming, Quad HD, 14:4 recording. Yes, they've got this multi-microphone thing on top with 8 microphones, and they use timing so that the further you zoom, the more it takes the timing across the microphones into account to kind of hone in on sound that's coming across the microphones. But I've always found that microphones on top, when the sound is coming from there, they're not going to hear. It's just the wrong place to put a microphone. You know, if you want to aim microphones, put a microphone here and then put 2 microphones on either side. And then this way you can use the side microphones to cancel what's also hitting this one. So the only thing you hear is just the front. That'd be how I do it, but I didn't design the camera. Stream to your preferred platform, RTMP and RTSP support, intelligent app control, wireless webcam. So yeah, there's no NDI mention on this page at all. So that being a factor for me, I'm all in on NDI. As I said, I'm all in on NDI. And that for me is an important consideration, considering there are so many tools that have NDI. Bringing a camera in, I wanted to be able to just immediately be adopted by like all these different pieces, and NDI is pretty important for that, for me. I'm updating my website because of tariff increases. Absolutely. You know, when the stuff costs more to bring in, then it has to be passed on, because you can't just eat it, because we all have slim margins to begin with. Siren sounds like an air raid. Who will man the big guns? I don't know. I don't know. But yeah, that's tornado sirens here in Texas, because it's tornado country. But I've gone on for an hour with regards to all of these different PTZ cameras and box cameras and little cameras and mobile streaming production and even iPhones. Actually, that was a Samsung phone, but even phones. Here, iPhones. There's lots of ways that you can leverage battery-powered gear for a production. Now, as we pointed out earlier, you can get a UPS and power everything off of the UPS, or the big lithium-ion power stations, they call them. They're not generators. That always gets me when I see people like, look at this lithium-ion generator. I'm like, it's not a generator. I had to charge it up. I put the power in there, and then you're just giving it back. A generator converts one thing to another. That's personal pet peeve of mine. But battery power allows you the flexibility to set up faster, because you don't necessarily have to search for AC power for that camera. You can just run your video cable there, and there you go. Or if you're running an NDI camera, you just run your NDI cable there, and your PoE switch could be running off of 12 volt. You've got that capability as well. So now that 12 volt is being shared via PoE to various NDI cameras, like a Bird Dog camera or a PTZ Optics camera. And then, of course, you've got little battery-operated cameras like this that you can just sprinkle around a venue. And look, I'm capturing 4K. I'm recording 4K internally, and I'm getting the signal, in my NDI app. Can I record? I think you can still record 4K and get NDI out of it. It's just that you can't do HDMI and NDI out of these little guys. There's lots of capabilities that getting off of a cable, getting onto battery power, frees up the flexibility in camera placement, especially. Taking a small thing like this and mounting it up on top of a door somewhere gives me a view that I can cut away. Oh, look, here's an audience view this way, an audience view that way. Well, how'd you get those? I just put up a couple phones. Those are not critical to the show for many things. Those things that are not critical to the show can be leveraging smaller, lighter, battery-powered devices that can give you all of these different viewpoints, making it look like a bigger production than it really is. And that's what battery power can deliver for you. Eric Jan says, great show again. A big fan here. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. As always, hey, it's time for my commercial. As always, if you see a video you like over here on the StreamTek channel, I would just really appreciate you taking a video that you like and share it on your social media, because that introduces my videos to people who may not have even heard of StreamTek yet. And that's the key thing. It's like I can do social all I want, but if they're not already connected with me, the only way I can reach them is through you. Also, feel free to check out Streaming Media Magazine, where I write, and here you can see some articles and reviews that I've done. There's the Bird Dog X1 20X PTZ camera. I put the X1 head to head against their old P200, and the new X1 is faster, even though it uses HX. So that was a really cool finding. Also, if you need to reach out to me, just go to StreamTek.tv. And up there's a little contact us form if you're looking for consulting or design ideas and things like that. I also have a couple other things. I run the B4 on M43 group on Facebook, which is putting big ENG lenses with a B4 mount. That's just the standard that it's called. And we put them on micro four thirds cameras. Why micro four thirds? Well, because when you throw the doubler in, and that's this thing right here, when you throw the doubler in, it covers the whole sensor. So, we're sitting here talking about 1/8 inch sensors and 1/3 inch sensors and 1 inch sensors. They're nothing compared to a micro or a 4/3 sensor. That's a much bigger sensor. And then also, in terms of streaming on battery power, if you have an old iPad, you can run this free software called AirMix, and you can run that on an old iPad as well as Android and iOS phones. And because Teradek has orphaned the software, moved on to other things, they actually released it for free. So you're able to go check this out, do multi-camera live switch and walk around. I even did a show on this. It's called, I did a video, multicam live on a stick. Here it is, studio on a stick. I had 2 phones and I was walking along doing multi-camera live switching using 2 phones and Teradek AirMix. So the entire studio, my far camera and my close and my switcher were on a monopod. So it's a studio on a stick, and that was a lot of fun. So feel free to check those out. As always, I appreciate all of you being here, and I look forward to next week's show and having all of you back again. Till next time, thanks for watching.